The mist lay heavy upon Thornfield Manor as it did upon the heart of its master. Philip Thornbury, the 8th Duke of Ashcroft, stood at his library window, a solitary figure framed against the dying light of day. He observed his vast estate with eyes as grey and cold as the November sky, finding neither joy nor sorrow in its splendour. 6 years a widower, the Duke had long ago abandoned the pretence of seeking happiness. "Your Grace," came the voice of his butler, interrupting his contemplation. "Lady Montgomery has arrived with her niece, Miss Rosalind Hartwood." Philip sighed, remembering the obligation he had reluctantly accepted. "Show them to the drawing-room, Simmons." "I shall be there presently." He lingered a moment longer at the window, steeling himself for the tedious social interaction. His sister Charlotte had insisted he host Lady Montgomery and her niece, newly arrived from Bath. "You cannot continue in this solitude," Charlotte had written. "It has been 6 years since Louisa's passing. Society begins to whisper that the Duke of Ashcroft has become a ghost himself." The Duke straightened his cravat and made his way through the corridors of his ancestral home. Portraits of Thornbury's past gazed down upon him with painted eyes that seemed to judge his every move. Their whispers followed him like shadows. "Failure. Couldn't save her. Your fault." The drawing-room door opened to reveal Lady Montgomery, a formidable matron whose reputation for matchmaking preceded her. Beside her stood a young woman of perhaps 23, dressed simply yet elegantly in blue muslin. "Your Grace," Lady Montgomery curtsied deeply. "How generous of you to receive us on such short notice. May I present my niece, Miss Rosalind Hartwood?" The young woman curtsied with perfect grace, her eyes downcast in proper deference. "Your Grace, I am honored." "Miss Hartwood," he acknowledged with the barest inclination of his head. "I trust your journey was comfortable." "Most agreeable, Your Grace, though I confess I found myself captivated by the beauty of your grounds even through the carriage window." Her voice held a warmth that struck him as peculiar, like sunlight breaking unexpectedly through winter clouds. When she raised her eyes to his, Philip found himself momentarily disarmed by their clarity, a deep brown that reminded him of polished amber. "My late husband was a great admirer of your work in Parliament," Lady Montgomery interjected, settling herself onto a chaise. "The Agricultural Reform Bill was particularly inspired." Philip forced his attention back to the older woman. "You are too kind, Lady Montgomery." "Not at all. We need men of principle in government, especially in these changing times." She adjusted her shawl. "Rosalind, my dear, did you not mention an interest in the Duke's famous library during our journey?" Miss Hartwood began, a flush rising to her cheeks. Philip noted her discomfort with his aunt's transparent maneuvering. Perhaps Miss Hartwood would enjoy a tour of the grounds tomorrow, weather permitting. "For now, I believe dinner will be served shortly." Throughout dinner, Philip observed his young guest with guarded curiosity. Unlike most unmarried ladies of his acquaintance, Miss Hartwood seemed content to listen rather than dominate the conversation with accomplishments or frivolity. When she did speak, her observations were thoughtful and occasionally touched with gentle humour. "And what brings you to Yorkshire, Miss Hartwood?" he inquired as the final course was served. She hesitated, exchanging a glance with her aunt. "My circumstances have changed, Your Grace. My father's investment suffered reverses, and after his passing last spring, it became necessary to accept my aunt's generous invitation." "Rosalind is too modest," Lady Montgomery added. Before her father's unfortunate business affairs, she was among the most sought-after young ladies in Bath. 3 offers in 1 season. All declined, of course. "Aunt, please," Miss Hartwood murmured, discomfort evident in the tension of her shoulders. Philip recognized the signs of financial ruin shrouded in polite conversation. It was a familiar tale among the gentry, fortunes lost through poor investments or gambling, daughters and sisters left to secure their futures through advantageous marriages. "I understand loss, Miss Hartwood," he said quietly. "It has a way of reshaping one's existence entirely." Her eyes met his, and something passed between them, a recognition, perhaps, of shared experience. "Indeed, Your Grace. Though I find that even in the darkest gardens, some flowers continue to bloom." Later that evening, Unable to sleep, Philip found himself drawn to his library window once more. The mist had cleared, and moonlight bathed the gardens in silver. A movement caught his eye, a solitary figure in pale blue moving among the rose beds. Miss Hartwood had ventured into the night-cloaked gardens, her hair loosened from its earlier strict arrangement. As he watched, she paused beside the marble fountain, then began to move in what he slowly recognized as a dance, not the structured quadrilles of ballrooms, but something more elemental. She turned and swayed with the night breeze, arms extended as if embracing the moonlight itself. For the first time in years, Philip felt something stir within him, not quite warmth, but an awareness that warmth might still be possible. The days that followed brought unexpected disruptions to Philip's carefully ordered existence. Miss Hartwood proved herself an early riser, often discovered sketching in the morning room or walking the grounds before breakfast. She displayed none of the artifice he had come to expect from unmarried ladies of quality, no strategic feinting, no orchestrated encounters in darkened corridors. During an afternoon ride, they paused atop a hill overlooking the estate. "You manage your lands well, Your Grace," she observed, her gaze traveling over the patchwork of fields and forest. "It provides occupation," he replied. "And you? How do you occupy yourself now that societal obligations no longer consume your days?" A small smile played at her lips. "I read excessively, sketch poorly, and have recently discovered a fondness for astronomy. The night sky seems clearer here than in Bath." "Astronomy? A curious pursuit for a young lady." "Perhaps. But I find comfort in the stars' constancy. No matter what changes in our lives, Orion still hunts across the winter sky." Philip studied her profile, struck by her unusual combination of practical sensibility and poetic observation. The observatory tower has not been used in years, but the telescope should still function. "You would be welcome to make use of it." Her eyes lit with genuine pleasure. "Truly? That would be wonderful." That evening, as Philip led her up the winding staircase to the observatory, he found himself speaking of things long buried. "My father built this tower for my mother. She had a passion for the stars that I never fully understood. And yet you've maintained it all these years. Some things deserve preservation, even when their purpose seems lost." In the circular room atop the tower, moonlight streamed through the glass dome. Miss Hartwood approached the brass telescope with reverent hands. "It's magnificent." It was state-of-the-art in its day. Philip moved to adjust the mechanism. "What would you like to see first?" "Jupiter, if possible. I've read that its moons are visible with a proper telescope." As he positioned the instrument, their hands brushed momentarily. Philip stepped back, suddenly aware of their isolation and the impropriety of being alone together after dark. Yet Miss Hartwood seemed oblivious to anything except the wonders revealed through the lens. "Oh," she exclaimed softly. "There they are. Like tiny diamonds surrounding a perfect pearl." Her delight was infectious, and Philip found himself smiling, a sensation so foreign he almost didn't recognize it. He began pointing out other celestial bodies, sharing knowledge acquired during childhood lessons but unused for decades. They remained in the observatory until the clock struck 11, their conversation flowing from astronomy to literature, politics, and philosophy. Miss Hartwood revealed herself to be remarkably well-read, her father having educated her alongside her brothers before their untimely deaths in a boating accident. "I should return you to your chambers," Philip said reluctantly. "Your aunt will wonder where you've disappeared to." As they descended the tower stairs, Miss Hartwood paused. "Thank you for sharing this with me, Your Grace. I know it must hold many memories." "Philip," he said impulsively. "When we are not in company, I would prefer you call me Philip." She looked startled, then pleased. "Then you must call me Rosalind." The following morning brought an unwelcome intrusion in the form of Lord Edmund Westfall, Philip's cousin and heir presumptive to the dukedom. He arrived unannounced during breakfast, his customary smug expression firmly in place. "Cousin, I was passing through to Lord Huntington's shooting party and thought I'd grace you with my company." His gaze fell on Rosalind, and something predatory entered his expression. "And who might this enchanting creature be?" Miss Hartwood is Lady Montgomery's niece, Philip replied coolly. They're guests for the month. Edmund bowed over Rosalind's hand, holding it longer than propriety dictated. Enchanted, Miss Hartwood. Truly enchanted. Throughout the day, Philip watched with growing irritation as Edmund made every effort to monopolize Rosalind's attention. His cousin's reputation with women was notorious, 3 broken engagements and countless ruined débutantes left in his wake. When Edmund suggested a stroll through the rose garden, Philip interceded. Miss Hartwood promised to assist me in cataloguing some botanical specimens this afternoon. Did I? Rosalind's momentary confusion gave way to understanding as she noted the tension between the men. Yes, of course. I had almost forgotten, Your Grace. In the library, safely away from Edmund's presence, Rosalind raised an eyebrow. Botanical specimens? Forgive the deception, Philip said, pacing before the fireplace. My cousin is not a gentleman to be trusted with young ladies of quality. I appreciate your concern, but I assure you I am quite capable of managing unwanted attentions. Edmund is skilled at making his attentions appear wanted until it is too late. Rosalind settled into a leather armchair. You speak as though from experience. Philip stopped pacing, his expression darkening. My wife, Louisa, was once the object of his pursuit. She rejected him for me, a fact he never forgave either of us for. I see. Rosalind studied him thoughtfully. You loved her very much. She died giving birth to our son. The words emerged harsh and clipped. Neither survived. Rosalind's eyes filled with compassion. I am so sorry, Philip. It was a lifetime ago. He turned away, the familiar walls closing around his heart once more. That evening, a storm broke over Thornfield Manor, lashing the windows with rain and setting the dogs to howling in the kennels. Philip sat alone in his study, a glass of brandy untouched before him, when a knock came at the door. It was Simmons, looking uncharacteristically flustered. Your Grace, forgive the interruption. Miss Hartwood appears to be missing. Philip rose immediately. What do you mean, missing? Lady Montgomery reports she retired to her room after dinner complaining of a headache, but when her lady's maid went to check on her, the bed was empty. No one has seen her for over 2 hours. A cold dread settled in Philip's stomach. And my cousin? Lord Westfall is in the billiards room, Your Grace. At least Edmund wasn't involved. Have the staff searched the house. I'll check the grounds. Grabbing a lantern and coat, Philip strode into the storm. The rain struck his face like tiny needles as he called Rosalind's name. Lightning illuminated the gardens in harsh white flashes, revealing nothing but swaying trees and flooded pathways. A horrible thought struck him, the lake. It had been Louisa's favorite place, and in the darkness and rain, its edges became treacherous. He ran, slipping on the wet grass, his heart pounding with a fear he had not felt in years. The boathouse stood dark and silent at the lake's edge. Philip raised his lantern, casting its glow through the open doorway. Rosalind. A movement in the shadows, then her voice at Philip. I'm here. She sat on an overturned rowboat, drenched and shivering, but alive. Relief washed over him with such force that he nearly staggered. What in God's name are you doing out here? He demanded, draping his coat around her shoulders. I needed to think, she said simply. The storm caught me by surprise, and I sought shelter. The entire household is searching for you. His fear transformed to anger. Do you have any idea what might have happened? You could have fallen into the lake, been struck by lightning. I'm sorry for causing concern. She stood, swaying slightly. I never intended. Her legs buckled, and Philip caught her against his chest. For a moment they stood frozen, her wet hair pressed to his shirt, his arms encircling her waist. You're freezing, he murmured, reason returning. We need to get you back to the house. The path had become a muddy stream, impossible to navigate in the darkness. Without thinking, Philip lifted Rosalind into his arms. She made no protest, her head resting against his shoulder as he carried her through the storm. By the time they reached the manor, servants waited with blankets and hot tea. Lady Montgomery descended upon them in a flurry of concern and recrimination. "Rosalind Hartwood! What were you thinking? The Duke of all people should not be forced to rescue you from your own foolishness." "It was no hardship, Lady Montgomery," Philip interjected. "But Miss Hartwood should change immediately and perhaps have the doctor summoned." "No doctor, please," Rosalind protested. "I am merely wet and tired." Later, after she had been bundled off to her chambers, Philip found himself once more at his library window. The storm continued to rage, but within him, something had shifted. The thought of losing Rosalind had awakened feelings he had believed long dead. Morning brought sunshine and an atmosphere of constraint. At breakfast, Rosalind appeared pale but composed, thanking Philip formally for his assistance. Lady Montgomery announced their imminent departure. "We have imposed upon your hospitality long enough, Your Grace. Now that the weather has cleared, we shall return to London tomorrow." Philip felt an irrational surge of panic. Surely there is no need for such haste. Miss Hartwood may require rest after yesterday's ordeal. "You are kind, Your Grace, but we must not trespass further on your generosity," Rosalind replied, her eyes not meeting his. That afternoon, Philip found her in the portrait gallery, studying the painting of his late wife. Louisa gazed serenely from the canvas, her golden beauty captured for eternity. "She was lovely," Rosalind said without turning. "Yes, she was." Philip moved to stand beside her. "You remind me of her sometimes, not in appearance, but in spirit." She too found joy in simple things. Rosalind finally looked at him. "Is that why you've been kind to me? Because I remind you of her?" The question caught him off guard. "No." "Yes." "Perhaps at first, but now." He struggled to articulate the confusion of his feelings. "You are entirely yourself, Rosalind. Unique and unexpected." "I should not have come to Thornfield," she said softly. "My aunt had plans, foolish, transparent plans. She hoped that you might see me as a suitable duchess. And you did not share these hopes. I came because I had nowhere else to go." Her honesty was refreshing and painful. "But I never intended. I never thought I would." "Would what?" "Care for you," she whispered. "It's impossible, of course. You still love your wife. And I have nothing to offer a duke, no dowry, no connections worth mentioning." Philip reached for her hand, surprising them both. "You misunderstand me entirely. I honored Louisa's memory by entombing myself alongside her. For 6 years, I have lived half a life. Until you danced alone in my garden under moonlight." Her eyes widened. "You saw me." "I did." And something inside me that had been frozen began to thaw. He squeezed her fingers gently. "Do not leave tomorrow, Rosalind." Before she could answer, the doors to the gallery burst open, and Edmund strode in, a newspaper clutched in his hand. "Well, well. What a touching scene. I hate to interrupt, but I thought you both might be interested in today's announcement." He thrust the paper toward them, folded open to the society pages. There, in bold print, was a notice that sent ice through Philip's veins. "The Duke of Ashcroft, long in mourning, has apparently found consolation in the arms of a fortune-hunting nobody. Miss Rosalind Hartwood, daughter of the disgraced merchant Jonathan Hartwood, has been seen in intimate circumstances with his grace at his country estate. One wonders if her aunt, the calculating Lady Montgomery, orchestrated this compromising situation." Rosalind's face drained of color. "How?" "Servants talk," Edmund shrugged. "Carrying a young lady through the rain makes for irresistible gossip. I merely helped the story find the right ears." Philip advanced on his cousin, rage building like thunder. "You did this deliberately. Consider it a favor, cousin. Better to know her true nature before you make an even greater fool of yourself. Her father died in debtor's prison, did she mention that? After embezzling from his investors." "That's a lie!" Rosalind cried. My father made poor investments, but he never stole. The courts disagreed. Edmund smirked. Ask her about the Westmore scandal, Philip. Ask her what happened to her engagement to Viscount Westmore when her father's crimes came to light. Philip turned to Rosalind, whose face had crumpled in distress. Is this true? Were you engaged? Briefly, she admitted. James broke it off when my father was accused. He believed the allegations. As did all of society, Edmund added. Her reputation was in tatters even before this latest indiscretion. Philip's mind raced, pieces falling into place, her sudden appearance at Thornfield, Lady Montgomery's transparent matchmaking, Rosalind's reticence about her past. You should have told me, he said quietly. And confirm every suspicion. Tears glistened in her eyes. Yes, my father died in disgrace. Yes, I was jilted and humiliated. And yes, my aunt brought me here hoping you might overlook my circumstances. But I never intended to deceive you, Philip. I never imagined you would. Would what? Fall in love with you. The words emerged before he could stop them. Edmund laughed unpleasantly. Oh, this is rich. The Duke of Ashcroft, besotted with a penniless scandal. Leave us, Philip commanded, not taking his eyes from Rosalind's face. Cousin, now, Edmund. Or I swear I will call you out. When they were alone, Philip reached for Rosalind's hands, but she stepped back. I must go, she whispered. This scandal will only worsen if I remain. Running will confirm every accusation, he argued. Stay, and we will face this together. Together? She shook her head sadly. There can be no together for us, Philip. You are a duke. I am ruined. I don't care about your father's mistakes or society's judgment. But you should. Your position, your responsibility to your title. She took a shuddering breath. I care for you too much to watch you sacrifice everything for me. Before he could respond, she fled the room, leaving Philip alone with the weight of revelation and the echo of words unspoken. That evening, Philip found himself once more in the observatory tower, staring at stars that suddenly seemed cold and distant. The household below was in disarray, Lady Montgomery alternating between berating her niece and packing for their hasty departure, servants whispering in corners, Edmund strutting about like a conquering general. The door opened softly behind him. I thought I might find you here. Rosalind stood in the doorway, dressed for travel despite the late hour. You're leaving tonight, he stated flatly. My aunt has arranged it. A carriage will take us to the coaching inn, and from there to my cousin's home in Scotland. She hesitated. I came to say goodbye. Philip crossed to her in 3 strides, taking her hands in his. Don't go. I must. Marry me. Her eyes widened in shock. What? Marry me, Rosalind. Be my duchess. You cannot mean it. The scandal, my father's disgrace. Mean nothing to me. He cupped her face gently. For 6 years I have existed in darkness. You brought light back into my world. I will not lose that again. Tears spilled down her cheeks. They will never accept me. Then we will change their minds together. He smiled, the expression feeling natural for the first time in years. I am a duke, after all. That must count for something. Philip. Her voice broke on his name. Are you certain? In answer, he kissed her, softly at first, then with growing passion as she responded. When they finally parted, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. Completely certain, he whispered. Stay with me, Rosalind. Dance with me in the garden for the rest of our days. 1 month later, the society pages carried a very different announcement. The Duke of Ashcroft announces his engagement to Miss Rosalind Hartwood to be solemnized at St. George's, Hanover Square, next month. The Duke has also established a foundation to assist families affected by financial misfortune, in memory of the late Jonathan Hartwood, whose business dealings have, upon investigation, been found free of criminal intent. In the gardens of Thornfield Manor, Philip watched as his fiancée danced among the roses, her laughter carrying on the summer breeze. This time, he did not observe from a distance but joined her, taking her hands in his and spinning her beneath the open sky. "Scandalous behavior for a duke," she teased, breathless from their impromptu waltz. "Fortunately, I am to marry a woman who appreciates a bit of scandal," he replied, drawing her close. The frozen heart that had sustained him through years of grief had fully thawed, replaced by something stronger and more resilient, a heart capable not just of remembering love, but of creating it anew. As twilight descended upon the garden, Philip kissed his bride-to-be beneath a canopy of stars, certain that some flowers indeed bloomed even in the darkest gardens, if only one had the courage to nurture them.